Hey everyone, I am back. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. I hope that you've had an amazing week. For those of you who are tuning back in and tune in every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here live on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page, YouTube, and LinkedIn Live, welcome on back. Thanks for tuning in here. For those of you who are brand new to Mental Health Moment, we are here live every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page, YouTube, and LinkedIn Live. And for those of you who are tuning in to, to the replay on Dr. Nekeshia Hammond YouTube page, be sure to like this page, share this video, and subscribe to the page. So welcome, welcome. Thanks so much for those who are starting to tune in from. Thanks for those who are starting to tune in today. Let me know where you're tuning in from in the comments. Hopefully, I'll be able to see my comments today because I never know. Like you all know, I never know if I can see them or not. But I'm like, because I really love to see your comments. But again, welcome, welcome. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. Let me know where you're tuning in from today. As for myself, I reside in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. Normally traveling somewhere or another with different projects. Today, I am right up the street in Orlando, not too far away from Tampa Bay. But again, let me know where you're tuning in from today. And for those of you who are brand new to Mental Health Moment is all about how do you work on becoming the best version of who you are, so you can show up powerfully for yourself and for the people around you, right? So we talk about different mental health tips, mental wellness tips every week. Love the community here. This is a global community, so everyone is welcome, of course. And I get excited when I hear you all stories and your wins and just the things that you're doing to work on your wellness and to work on being better versions of yourself. So that's a little bit about what Mental Health Moment is all about. Quick announcement before I start today's Mental Health Moment. Let me get the date for you here. Okay. Well, when I am speaking at an event that's open to the public, obviously I'll invite you all. Some of them unfortunately are private, so I can't invite you all because they're private to different corporations and organizations. But when it is open to the public, I love to share it with you all. And if you're able to make it, if you're in that area of the world, then obviously please register and attend. So the next event I will be at that is open to the public is going to be Sunday, March 22nd. It's called the Intersection event. It is in Tampa Bay, in Tampa. So be sure to grab your tickets. It's on I think it was posted either today or yesterday. I'm kind of losing track of time here. There's a lot going on right now, but it is on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. It's all on there. You'll see a flyer. You'll see the information of how to register. And again, it's Sunday, March 22nd. It's a full day event in Tampa. I'm super excited to be there, sharing my expertise, of course, on mental wellness, how we can be thriving and not just surviving. And there are many amazing people on the panel that I'm on, as well as the whole entire event. I'm excited actually to attend as well as be there and speak, because it's hosted by a good friend of mine, Melissa Atkinson. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a great day. So if you just need to be uplifted, need to learn information, want to connect with community, that would definitely be an event that you should attend. So again, that's Sunday, March 22nd in Tampa, and you can grab your tickets. All the information is on is on any of my social medias. The flyer's on there. You'll see it. It's called The Intersection. So be sure to register, and I hope to see you all there. Another announcement I had for you all, that was March. Yes, I'll let you know when I think I'm waiting for something to be finalized. Yes. Okay. So I'll let you all know that once it's finalized. Anyhow, so welcome to Mental Health Moment. Today I wanted to share with you all this idea because, of course, it's the beginning of the year, and we've been talking a lot at the end of last year of how to sort of close out the year. Hopefully you are, whatever that looked like for you, maybe you have a certain ritual at the end of the year. Maybe you were just like, goodbye year, like I'm good, right? Or maybe you love the year, like whatever it looked like, right? Just sort of closing that out. And of course, these are the beginnings, new things, new great things, new year, new me, right? All those type of vibes and energy is usually what's happening, of course, in this month. But also, there's just moments that tend to spring up. And I wanted to talk to you all. Oh, hey, from Virginia. Welcome back to Dallas, Texas in the house. Welcome, welcome. There's also moments that start to sort of pop up that can be really high pressure moments that many of us are in. So no matter what you do, whether you're working, whether you're retired, whatever it is that you have at different moments of your life, there's just things that pop up. We feel a lot of pressure, and sometimes we get into panic mode. But if we really start to think about our mental wellness and getting to a place where we feel grounded, we don't necessarily always have to hit the panic mode, right? And I share this with you actually out of inspiration for an event that I'll be at in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks or so in San Francisco for Super Bowl media week. So many of you, I know this is a global community, but I'm sure you've heard of the Super Bowl, even if you don't live in America. It's pretty big for us. But I always think about, when I've done a lot of work on mindset. For some of you, you've read the books on mindset, but I always think about this like elite mindset that you have to have. It's one of the largest stages in the world, being at the Super Bowl. Whether there's a lot of different things happening, but there's just high pressure, obviously, right, to perform. But you don't have to be an elite athlete to be listening to this today, because regardless of wherever you're at in your life, we all have times. It may not be the Super Bowl, but we all have times in our life where we have pressure to perform. So, again, whether that's work, whether it's in your family life, whether you're showing up for a friend, whether you're involved in different projects, if you're in business or whatever it is that you're doing, there are times when we can get into a panic mode. And for some of us, not only do we get into a panic mode, but we start spiraling down, right? Mentally or emotionally, or maybe even physically, spiritually, like it just uh, starts a downward spiral, unfortunately, because we haven't worked on being grounded. Okay. So today I'm going to share a couple of tips with you so we cannot get into that mode. I do want to put a huge asterisk on today, especially when I talk about things like anxiety. I am trained as a psychologist, but this by no means what I ever share actually on Mental Health Moment. It does not replace therapy. This is not a supplement for therapy. If you do need to reach out to a mental health professional, please do that, or a medical professional, or whomever it is that you may need, because these are tools, like things to cope, things that you can try. But again, it doesn't ever substitute, right, for sitting down and actually having conversations and going in depth with your life and all those sorts of things, to really dive deep sometimes. And sometimes that's what we need. Just real quick, we digress for a quick second before I get to these tips here. I did want to share. So I do have a lot of my family members actually in Chicago. I was very sad. If you did watch the Chicago Bears game, I was like, no, I was really sad. They went into overtime. In case any of you all are watching, I was rooting for them. It was just such a sad ending. I was like, oh no. But nonetheless, it just reminded me of that. Since we're talking today about high pressure situations, I was like, oh my goodness, that was a crazy game. But nonetheless, thanks so much for joining here. Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. So, okay, so the first tip I want to share with you today, again, if you're just tuning in, you're like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about when you have high pressured situations, fill in the blank of whatever that may look like for you, right? To work on getting to a point where you don't get into the panic mode, and instead you work on getting into a grounded mode, right? So you can succeed in whatever it is that you're trying to do. So we talked last week, I believe, about RAR. In case you missed it, you can always catch all the replays of Mental Health Moment on Dr. Nekeshia Hammond YouTube page. But that basically was looking at regulating your nervous system, right? So we had a whole discussion about that. So that is a part of it. The other thing is to really think about shrinking those moments. So let's say for you, I'm just making up an example. Let's say for you, your high pressured situation is a really big meeting at work. Let's say, right? Like you have to present, there's a big meeting at work. It's a very high pressured situation for you. Instead of, usually what we tend to do, our brain likes to do something that's called catastrophizing, which is a psychology word, and it literally means you think of the worst possible outcome. Sometimes when you catastrophize, you think of something that is extremely unlikely to even happen, but it makes sense in your brain because of the lane that anxiety takes us to sometimes. The road that anxiety takes us to sometimes, which is just spiraling down, thinking the what if, what could happen, what's the worst that could happen, what's the worst outcome, right? Like our brains sometimes start to do that, and then we just catastrophize and think of like the worst possible scenario, right? Even though it's highly unlikely it's going to happen, but it's hard to, well, logic and emotion fight each other sometimes, right? So logically we may know something, but emotionally we're struggling with it. But the way to think about what I call shrinking the moment is to really think about like what is the next step, right? If we think about sometimes if we think too big too big picture of a situation, it's really really overwhelming, right? So if there's like 8 parts of this huge moment for you, whatever that high pressured moment is, if there's 8 steps to it, maybe just thinking about the next step, right? Like, or just thinking about the next day, maybe there's something coming up and it could be like 2 months from now, and like there's a huge amount of stress that you feel, but it's 2 months from now, right? Instead of like, okay, what does tomorrow hold, or like what's the next step, what's the next item, right? It's sort of like breaking it down mentally for you, where your brain can handle it's easier for your brain to handle bite-sized chunks of information instead of like, again, getting to a point where we catastrophize and we just make this huge thing, right? We say, make a mountain out of a molehill sometimes, and we do that. That's what anxiety does sometimes. But it's important that we think about how do we get to a mental place where we can, again, regulate our nervous systems, right? And also sort of shrink that moment, right? So it doesn't feel so big to us. Um, the other thing, mhm, someone said, I'm a true Bears fan as I'm a former Chicagoan. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we were talking earlier about that Chicago game, which I was like, man. Oh, but hi from Florida. I almost missed you. Oh, all good. Glad you can make it. So again, just thinking about excuse me. Thinking about how to make things less overwhelming for you, right? Because sometimes we just totally forget that, and again, we just focus on this huge big picture, and just miss the point of sometimes we need to focus more into the details of it and the next step, so we're not getting as overwhelmed. And granted, some things are just big things like happening in our lives. Again, I'm giving you a work example. It doesn't have to be a work example, but there's just certain things that are bigger deals in our life, whatever that looks like. There's higher stakes or whatever the situation may be. So anxiety is a normal reaction. It's just that when we get to the point where we're so overwhelmed or we're catastrophizing, I've seen a lot lately. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Well, I follow a ton of inspirational content on social media, but what I see a lot of, which I totally agree with, and it's hard to do, but it is a mindset shift to do. I always see these memes that say, if you're going to overthink things, then why not overthink? Like, if we're going to always think about like what's the worst that can happen, why not also think what's the best that could happen, right? Like, what if what we're stressing about the opposite happens? Like, what if our expectations just like in a positive way just exceed what we were even thinking about, right? Because we tend to are that's just well, there's a lot of research on it. We tend to be in a negative self-talk sometimes. We tend to be in a negative state of mind. We think about what's the worst that can happen, but it's also like, but what's the best that can happen, right? Like let's start to have that mindset too. And it's really interesting when you start to think like that. And again, I don't mean every day. That's totally unrealistic, of course. But when you really have certain things and you start to visualize, ton of research on that too. But you start to visualize like what if that, let's say, work meeting or whatever it is went really well. Like that is a possibility too, right? But we tend not to think like that. So again, it's really I talk at length because I write books about this, y'all, but it really is about shifting your mindset, which is not an overnight thing. But it is possible to think that way, right? We just have to really think about um, be conscious of it, and take those steps, right? Because the goal is, for tip number one, I'm going to go to tip number two, but the goal is your brain needs to feel like the task, whatever that task is manageable, right? Once you get into a state of like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming, or I'm going to do bad, or this is not going to go well, or all the things we start to say, then it's interesting too. There's something called analysis paralysis sometimes. Like we just get into this point where we think about all these different scenarios, and then we work ourselves up, and we're not being grounded, right? So again, so if you're just tuning in on today's mental health moment, we're talking about a couple of ways to be grounded, especially in high pressure situations. Because it's a real thing to enter into a state of panic instead of like working to be in a calmer state, as calm as we can be. Anything that you are working on. Again, I know this is the start of the year, or maybe you're watching this in this like summertime, but right now live, it's the start of the year, and some of us have big goals, which is great. Have the big goals in whatever area of your life. However, also give yourself grace. Some of you, I mean, some things just aren't going to be achieved. Many things are. It's all good. Like, let's give ourselves grace, and let's also think about our mental health and wellness, right? Through this process. So, yes, thanks for sharing that. Okay, so tip number two. Tip number two today. I want you to think about also. It's also easy to, when you're in this high pressure situation, to really be revved up to your emotions, but also think about sort of anchoring to preparation. And what I mean by that is you really have to ask yourself, like, um, what have I already prepared for? Right? Because a lot of times I found like we don't give ourselves enough credit. So when I've worked with different corporate leaders and things like that, it's so fascinating to me because I mean, people are just amazing and resilient and brilliant in their work, and I'm like, that's so cool, right? But I also see how a lot of times as leaders, and many of you watching this are leaders, don't give ourselves enough credit for that. So it's like you could be going into this very high pressured situation and you don't even realize like there's a lot that you've already prepared for. So let's say, like I said, it's that meeting at work or whatever it is that you need to have these conversations or something else that's a very high pressure situation. You might you might already know what you're doing, right? Because we tend to our mind distorts reality a lot of times. So we tend to tell ourselves things that are not true. So you might start to feel like I'm not good enough, but I don't know what I'm doing. Well, what if I fail? Like all those sorts of things, which of course, yes, are possibilities that whatever situation you're in, things may not go how you want them to go, but also know that a lot of times you might actually be prepared for that said situation already, right? Like what is it that you've already gotten through? Like what is it, especially when it comes to resilience, what is it that you've already um like conquered, if you will, and made it through? Because that's huge going into that situation, right? So um it's it's a matter of making sure that you give yourself enough credit. So whatever it is, whether it's your expertise, whether it's your training, whether it's your fortitude, like your strength, like not just physical strength, but your mental strength, your emotional strength, your spiritual strength. Like some of you have been through some stuff. Okay? And like but you don't give yourself enough credit that you made it through that. Right? So because you made it through that, maybe maybe this new high pressure situation, you'll be able to get through this also. You already have the skills, you already have the resilience, you already have the personality, you already have the skill set maybe to get through this. Like sometimes we just need to shift our brains and our thinking to remember that, because a lot of times, like I said, I have met some really really cool people in my life, and I'm like, you're so brilliant, right? And though certain people just don't they don't not not that they don't know, but I think sometimes our emotions just cloud our reality and cloud our judgment. So again, even though you may know certain great things about yourself and your strengths, you get into a different situation that maybe you're not familiar with or comfortable with, and then sort of goes out the window, right? And you forget your brilliance, and you forget your gifts. And what I mean by that is your emotional gifts. Like a lot of us have emotional gifts too, and mental wellness gifts. Like some of you are just, I mean, for what it's worth, some of you are really good at managing your emotions. Some of you are really great with emotional intelligence. Some of you are really great with coping with stress. Like these are gifts. Like, these are great things. And if you're not, which is okay, then you work on those things, right? Then we go into more personal development, which is okay, because oh my gosh, there's so many resources, right? Whether it's a mental health professional, whether it's a coach, whether it's a mentor, combination of wherever you get your information, if it's podcasts, if it's books, or like becoming a better version of yourself. Like that's allowed, right? It's okay. We're all allowed. Well, I'm going to get to tip number 3 in a moment, but I will say that I can't, yeah, I really can't imagine a world without hope. Just because, again, when we think about the overthinking, we also have to be, if we're going to spend the time. And anxiety, like I said, is normal to an extent. But if we're going to spend the time thinking of outcomes, shouldn't we also have moments where we're hoping for positive things as well, and positive outcomes, and imagining that? That's a very real thing. That's something that I don't even know when I learned that. I'm trying to learn. I don't remember. It was a gazillion years ago. Like I like to say, I don't remember when I learned. I don't remember when I learned visualization. Actually, maybe it was in my 20s. I don't know. It was a while back, but nonetheless, it's something that is very powerful. And what's interesting? Even there's research studies on this, but even if your outcome is not what you expected with that said situation, the time that you spent visualizing positive outcomes, like what it did for your mind and your body, and getting into a calmer state, which I constantly preach here, right, on mental health moment, like that is beneficial too. So let's say, again, the example we're using today, it could be an example, but if you have a high pressure situation at work and you spent 2 weeks to prepare, you have a choice to spend the 2 weeks in anxiety and worry and frustration and nervousness and catastrophizing and all the things, or spending those said 2 weeks visualizing positive outcomes, preparing too. I'm not saying not to prepare, y'all. I mean, but preparing and spending the time in positive visualization. And that's what these, like, again, I'm about to go interview some amazing elite athletes, but that's a real thing when it comes to performance psychology too, is the visualization. There are a gazillion coaches out there that talk about visualization, right, with elite athletes. And again, you don't have to be an elite athlete to be doing these visualizations for your life, whatever your situation may be. And again, I'm just giving you the work example. It could be literally any area of your life that you're trying to improve, taking the time to be thinking about, to sort of be anchoring up in your preparation to understand that there's positive outcomes that come out too of situations, right? So just really thinking about working on being in that mindset. And again, it's so hard sometimes, you all, doing mental health moment, because there is a huge spectrum of our mindsets. Some of you all are like high on the scale of optimism and you're like, yep, this is what I already do. Some of you all are high on the scale of pessimism and you're like, you know what, I need to work on more positive thinking. It's all good wherever you're at. Some of you are amazing at self-care. Some of you have a lot of work to do in self-care. And again, wherever you're at in this journey, it's all good. The biggest thing is for you to get into a space where you're like, you know what? There's some things I need to change. Let me work on these said things. That's an awesome place to be. So awareness. And so, okay, so I'm going to go to my third tip here. But if you're just tuning in today, we're talking about 3 ways to think about staying grounded, right? Especially when you have high pressured situations. I think about, I mean, there's so many different situations and different aspects of life. I think about corporate executives I've worked with. I think about, these athletes coming up with a Super Bowl again shortly, like before you know it, it's right Super Bowl, and like just these big things. And again, for you, whatever that big thing may be, there are ways for you to think about working on being grounded. So, the last tip I want to share with you today is really thinking about this is hard to do for sometimes, but for some of you it'll be hard to do. But try to work on it. Is think about detaching your identity from the said outcome. And what I mean by that is sometimes, I've seen this so many times, guilty as well. Like sometimes there's just certain parts of our identity that we have to recognize is literally just one part of who we are. And what I mean by that is, let's say your job, whatever your job is, sometimes in certain parts of your life, because there may be a big high pressure meeting or a moment or a speech or a conversation or doing something with a coworker or whatever it is, we get very like our brains get very hyper focused on it. And whatever the situation is and the outcome, we almost want to like blame ourselves or put all of our identity into that said situation in that moment. But the reality is, whatever it is, the outcome, whatever the outcome is, that is literally just a small part of who you are. So, whatever your job title is, fill in the blank, that is a small part of who you are. There are still many other parts about you, right? If you were really to sit down and be like, who am I? Right. And write down all the things of who you are. What do you like to do for fun? Like, who are you? Are you a parent? Are you a grandparent? Are you a significant other? Are you a friend? Are you a sister, brother? Like there's so many roles you have. Are you creative? What are your gifts? Like, there's so many parts of who you are. But again, we tend to just be hyper focused sometimes on our identity in those said situations, which is a very dangerous thing sometimes because, again, if things don't go the way we want the outcomes to go, then it really can be difficult to, then we start to get into the self blame game, which is not a good place to be. Um, but it really is about shifting your perspective, right? And understanding again that that does not define whatever happened. Let's say that said situation, I'm going to say we were talking about positive outcomes, but let me just say it didn't go as well as you wanted. The meeting didn't go well, or whatever the situation was, just didn't go well. Again, it's sometimes there's things that are really small parts of our lives that feel big in the moment because that's all we're thinking about. But in the grander scheme of your life, it actually is going to be a smaller moment than we think it is, right? So we, again, have to detach our identity from that said situation, right? And not to say that we don't, I'm not saying to not have accountability, right? So again, we have to make sure, yes, we do our preparation, we do our research, we do our due diligence, whatever it is that situation is, the high pressure situation. However, things do happen. Sometimes we try really hard on certain things and they just don't go the way we want them to go, right? Like that's reality. That's life. But also remembering what are your other qualities, right, that you have. And for all of you who are tuning in, frankly, I do want to say again that I I generally am happy when you all are here, not for me, but for you, because I love personal development, frankly, and I get really excited when you take the time to say, okay, how can I work on being a better version of who I am? Right? Because again, it doesn't just affect you. It does affect you, but it also affects the people around you as well. Right. So imagine, right? My little magic wand that I wish I had as a little girl, just make everything better. But imagine how amazing it would be if you and your next door neighbor and your coworker and your best friend and your sister, brother, like imagine like all these people around you being positively affected by you changing, right? And you being a better version of who you are. Like that is a true reality, which is pretty cool, I think. And then they spread that love to other people, which is really cool. So, um, so the last thing I want to leave you with is just remembering again, wow, I'm just way over time today. Okay, I was reading all your comments. Okay, I want to wrap up. But the last thing I want to leave you with today is just remembering that a couple things. One, as I recap, that if you're going to take the time, were my overthinkers in there? in the room. If you're going to take the time to just be overthinking these very high pressure situations, also be thinking of the way that it could go right, right? Instead of always like, what could go wrong? What if I fail? Like, I'm not good enough, like all those types of negative thinking that we have. It could also be beneficial for you to be thinking about, okay, but what if it goes well, right? Like, what if I do well? What if the situation goes right? What if it goes much better than I even thought, right? Like those are real possibilities. Okay. So being in that mindset, understanding again that if it does not go well, though, it doesn't completely define who you are, right? That was one said project situation um, that happened in that moment of time. And again, we'll have other opportunities, right? So so I leave you with that. I'm way over. For those of you who are new to Mental Health Moment, we usually go a lot shorter, but I liked reading your comments today. So I'm going to wrap up today's Mental Health Moment, but I do want to remind you, actually, if you all tuned in late, let me just give you the announcement one more time. I just want to make sure I get the date right before I tell you the wrong information. Let me get my calendar real quick. Okay. So if you tuned in late, I was just sharing in the beginning the announcement. I'll share it again on Sunday, March 22nd. I will be speaking at the Intersection event. That'll be in Tampa Bay, in Tampa. You can go to any of my social media and see the flyer and register. I would love to see you there. It's just going to be an amazing day. I'm excited to be there as a speaker on one of the panels, but also I'm excited to attend the day because I've seen some of the other speakers who are amazing. It's about wellness. It's about community. It's going to be a great day. If you need an uplifting, inspiring day, I'm pretty sure it'll be that. That'll be hosted by my friend Melissa Atkinson, who's just an amazing human. I can go on and on about her. She's amazing. So again, Sunday, March 22nd in Tampa. Yeah, on social media, you can see the flyers, how to register. So I would love to see you there. And I will wrap up today's mental health moment. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for being amazing. I hope you have an amazing week. And I'll see you all next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here live on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page, YouTube, and LinkedIn Live. Be blessed, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.